don't see in the cause. Who you think they call when they need it enforced? Yeah. Doing more than talk, true to it, can't rip the team apart. Back, gon' set it up, dance with the devil, we gon' heat it up. Back from beyond, you gon' find out what it mean to be the God. Coming back from beyond, find out what it mean to be the God. Coming back from beyond, now begin what's on. Against all odds, I'ma get that, bring that on, go and tell me where they at. Against all odds, I'ma do this, standing in the way, I think you better move. Against all odds, I'ma do this, you in the way, I think you better move. Against all odds, I'ma do this, you in the way, I think you better move. Against all odds.
Hi everybody, welcome to Defying the Odds, and I'm your host, Higgy. How's everybody doing tonight? Defying the Odds is my attempt to create a ripple effect of positivity, hope, and inspiration in our recovery community by showcasing inspirational testimonies of people that are willing to step out of the shadows and share their stories of their struggles, their pain, and how it turned into purpose for them. And tonight is no different. First off, Defying the Odds is powered by my nonprofit, No More Heroin, 501c3. Let me get this back up here. There we go. That looks better. And this episode is sponsored by Grace Recovery and Wellness in Anderson, Indiana. They are my employers. They have afforded me this beautiful space to set up my studio and do my live streaming and podcasting. So thank you to my friends at Grace Recovery and Wellness. And if any proceeds that are made from my streaming go directly into my nonprofit, No More Heroin, so I can provide sober living scholarships, hygiene items, clothing for work and such. So if you feel motivated to send stars or donate to No More Heroin, I truly appreciate it. If you're catching us live, you'll see the live button right here. Drop a hashtag live. If that button is not there, drop a hashtag replay because you're catching the replay. I have an amazing guest for you guys tonight. Nicole has become a dear friend of mine, and she has an amazing testimony of overcoming. So I'm going to bring Nicole on right now. Hello, my friend.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good.
Thank you for jumping on here with me. I know you have a really, really busy, hectic schedule with your career and such up there in Saskatoon, in Saskatchewan, Canada.
Yes, that's a real place.
I just like saying that.
And you're even saying it right. So that's pretty good.
Oh, we got Trap House testimonies in the comments. Hello, everyone. Please, if you would, just chime in and let us know where you're watching from. Thank you guys for jumping on here. This is my 6th episode, and I really enjoy bringing people on and sharing their stories of hope, inspiration, that from all walks of life, from all backgrounds. And Nicole and I have known each other for over 6 years at this point.
I think it's almost 6. Yeah,
almost
something
6.
Like that.
We connected on Instagram way back when. I was sharing about my struggles of relapse, and you were sending me messages and encouraging me all throughout the years with my ups and my downs. And you've been an amazing support for me. So thank you very much for being that person.
Yeah, and it goes back both ways. And we actually met right after I was coming off of my relapse. Yeah, so, I think that's where, the big connection was, because I was having like such a really hard time with it. The shame that I was carrying was immense. Mm-hmm. And, I was having a hard time even talking about it, but like we connected and it made a huge difference for me.
Thank you for that. So I have a surprise for you right out of the gate.
Oh, yeah?
I brought in one of your friends from your past and your present.
Chantel's my present. That's what she is. In all ways, she's my present.
Everyone, welcome Chantel Huell from Trap House Testimonies.
I got really emotional watching you guys from backstage. She didn't know I was there. I just got really emotional.
So everyone, I want to draw attention to Nicole's. She is celebrating 64 months of recovery today. So congratulations. Everyone hit that heart for her. Smash that heart.
Thank you.
Such an amazing accomplishment.
And just like you and I had that relapse really close, Chantel, what are you, 2 weeks behind me? You're like, we're soul sisters in 100 different ways, but we also are like clean time twins.
That is
so
dope.
There's that too, which is really great.
We were at an NA convention and people are like, oh, you guys cleaned up together? I was like, no, we all went to jail together.
We all went to jail.
We all went to jail together.
So what is your history together, briefly?
Well,
I bet you that we probably have two different stories, but I don't know if she even remembers the first time we met, because she was actually out and she was working for the organization that I head up now. And she came into the Healing Lodge where I was doing my federal sentence. And I was like, when I was in there, I was pretty quiet. I kept my head down, and she was talking to a couple people at a table. And I was like, who is this woman?
Who is this?
So I kind of tried to sneak in there, and we didn't really, meet really at that point. But it was so weird because we kind of became friends on Facebook. And it was like kindred spirits, and we were like, we're a lot alike. This is kind of interesting. So, messages back and memes and all that kind of bullshit. And I'm like, this girl is like, she's my soulmate, but in a friend version. And this was just going on for a really long time. And we knew a lot of the same people. And I was working for Elizabeth Fry in Kamloops, and I was kind of growing out of the position that I was in at the time, and I was thinking about making a change. And Chantel sent me the job posting for Elizabeth Fry in Saskatchewan, and she was like, okay, you need to come back.
Come home now.
Come home now.
And I was like, I'm never fucking coming back there.
So where you reside currently, where you hold this position as executive director, is your home area where you did all your dirt and you got into all that trouble, correct?
Yeah. I just want to hear if Chantel has anything else she'd like to throw into my dialogue there about how we met.
Her dialogue is bang on, except I have a confession. When I met her that very first time, on the inside, I was higher than a kite.
Oh.
Were you really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And there's so many things. Yeah, there's so many things that it's taken me the longest time to come forward, because I don't want it to affect my future. But I thought, you know what, if I'm not completely transparent about that part of my past and where I was,
right,
then it's going to bite me in the ass, right? So
but
when I
know what?
That's 64 months ago, right?
No, longer than that.
Longer,
because I relapsed too. Right.
And I went back to jail. I relapsed. A hard relapse, and I went back to the penitentiary again. But yeah, there's my confession. I was like, I'm gonna tell her the first time I ever met her, I was higher than a kite.
Listen, so much fucking respect for you saying that, because people need to know that, because it all goes back to the same thing that I keep telling people about, right? Hiding in plain sight. Yeah. Hiding in plain sight. And the, shame that you carry and the inability to even come out to people that should be supporting you. Because try coming back in the rooms after you relapse. There are a lot of people there that are interested in supporting you, but there's people that talk shit about you.
Yeah.
100%. I've been there, done that.
Yeah.
Right.
It's hard to come back from that shame. I even had somebody phone me from the Healing Lodge because of where I work now, probably 6 weeks ago. And because when you go to the pen, you got to get the numbers approved on your phone card, right? So they're like, "Oh, are you sure you're clean and sober?" I was like, "Oh, do I owe you an explanation for it?" Like I wasn't rude, right? But I know exactly who the guard was, and I was like, wow. Yes, I am. And I told her right down to the second how sober and clean I am. But yeah.
Yeah. No, we met in 2015. 2015. I got released in 26, or maybe it was fall 2015, spring 2016, something like that. I got released in 2016.
And I was back in the life by then.
Right.
Yeah.
And I did parole in community for 21 months and managed to stay clean during that period of time. And I was in the rooms and I had a sponsor, but I started backsliding because I wasn't being honest publicly about the fact that I had a past, like a criminal record, and I wasn't being honest about the fact that I was in recovery. Like, I was careful who I shared that information with. And I didn't know who I was. And what still resonated with me was the life. And I moved somewhere where I didn't know anybody at all, but I still managed to meet somebody that had also just been released from prison down in Kansas on a recovery site, and got into a relationship.
Finest.
What?
I said 13 stepping at its finest.
Except for he's in Kansas and I'm in Canada, and I'm not allowed in the States. So, how is this even happening?
Yeah.
But it is. And as soon as I got off parole, I got my mom to drive me across by Brandon, and they just let me in. They're like, come on in.
Come on in.
And I went down to Kansas, and I was there for, I think, 3 weeks, and promptly relapsed. And I'm lucky I didn't get a fucking another bit. And down there, especially, because whole different ball game down there, Piggy. Like, you guys you're like, I know if you're closer to the cartels and the border, but the drugs were no joke. Like, it was not good.
Right.
It was bad.
Yeah.
That's some lived experience.
Yeah. Like, his plug got shot, and 5 people got killed that night, guns all the time, open carry, like, it was scary down there. And,
sounds like Regina.
I came back once, and then I went back down again. And then I was like, what are you doing? Like, this is ridiculous. And I was so miserable. And I was like in psychosis half the time. And it was just funny because, like, as soon as I got down there, I was like right back in it too. I'm like, you got an 8-ball and you like owe $200. Like, what is this? So let me show you how to do it. So, like, shit got real really fast. And when I came back to Canada, I had nowhere to go. I had given up my apartment. I gave up my jobs. I sold everything I owned, and ended up back at my mom's in her basement. And that was in Manitoba. And I was like, what the fuck am I going to do now? And then my sponsor that I have now, I reached out to her, and I was like, if I come back to Kamloops, will you sponsor me? And one of my really, really good friends that I was working for before I went down to Kansas said, you can come and live with me. Don't worry about it. You just like come back and get yourself straightened out. And she had kids and shit. And so, it was really, I think, generous of her to allow me to come back and I was a mess. And I was talking to her through all of this. And she was like, come on back and try again. And this is what changed. Although I was carrying all that fucking shame and so much shame, like, I was so upset with myself because I had 33 months and I grieved that clean time like a death. Like, I literally felt like somebody that I loved died. And it, I think it's kind of, it's a touchy thing because, like, I wouldn't want anybody else that went back out to feel like I did. Like, I would never want them to feel that way. And I kept telling myself everything that I did learn in that 33 months, it's still experience. And, I knew that if I kept beating myself up, that I would just stay out. And I'm like, what are you going to do different?
Real quick. I know Chantel's on a time constraint. Do you want to stay?
Oh, is she?
Yeah.
Do you want to stay, Chantel, or?
I only committed to 10 minutes of my time.
Okay.
Okay.
So could I bring
you want me to,
back
but I don't
together
want to
sometime?
Yeah, well, we can come back together. I just don't want to take away from Nicole's story. So.
Okay,
Yeah, I think that you should have Chantel on without me is what I think.
Oh yeah, that's going to happen too.
It's going to happen, but we got to come back together.
Good.
Thank you, my friend. I'll talk to you soon. Okay.
Thanks, Chantel. I love her so much. Like I have so much respect for her.
Do something special, something nice for you for your 64-month milestone. That's a blast.
And that was perfect. That was perfect.
So where did all this start for you?
Where did all this start? So I'm from a pretty small town in Saskatchewan, like 500 people, and I grew up in a typical Saskatchewan kind of family where really great morals, lots of integrity, word is bond, work hard, play hard, all of those really great things that come from like farming communities and ranching communities. And I'm 7th generation settler in Canada. And so, really tough family. And
what do you mean by settler?
One thing that, pardon me?
What do you mean by settler?
Settler. So I'm not like in Canada, if you're not originally from Canada, like if you're European, if you're not Indigenous, you're a settler. Okay. And despite the fact that I've been here for 7 generations, this land is not my land. I've been given an opportunity to live here, but this is not my land. This is Indigenous land. And I'm on Treaty 6 right now, and I recognize that. And I have so much respect for the first people that were here before settlers. And the only reason I say that I'm 7th generation is not to try to flex, but just to provide context in respect to, what kind of family that I have. And they were settlers, and they were close with the Indigenous nations that they live close to. And I think that that's where my respect and my passion for Indigenous rights and decolonization comes from. But my family, although they work their asses off, they drink a bit, and it works for most of them. They all own their own businesses. They all keep their shit together. They all have nice houses and drive $100,000 vehicles and all of those things. But the one thing that I got from all of that as a kid was bad coping skills. Sure. So I started drinking when I was like 12 years old, probably even maybe a little bit before that. And I think that a lot of people learn to cope that way and stuff their emotions down. And that's definitely what I learned from that. And so, grew up, did the things that you're supposed to do. I screwed around a little bit. I dropped out of high school. I went and lived on the coast with my dad, who incidentally was not like my mom's family. They, they were a little bit different. His dad was from Russia, and lots of drinking and abuse. And my dad was a bit of a drug dealer, and so was his brother. And so I have this really solid family on one side, and then this other family on my other side. And my dad was a bit crazy, and he wasn't around, but I had so much love for him because I thought he was so cool. Mm-hmm. And so, I think that like drinking was normalized. And then by the time I was 15, drugs were also normalized. And I love my dad, and I really wanted to be around him, but he was so emotionally unavailable. And so I went to university, and I got a sociology degree, and I was working in outreach. And then I decided that I wanted to go to law school. And that's something that I wanted to do for a really long time. It was just something that I was really interested in. And again, it was related to, the Constitution and the Charter of Rights and Indigenous rights and all of those things, because I've always loved social justice. Like any kind of unfairness drives me insane. And right before law school, I ended up marrying a guy that I had known since I was 14 years old, and had partied with quite a bit when I was, a teenager and growing up and all of that, and didn't really think anything of it, right? Because of the fact that drinking was normalized and using drugs were normalized. And I was used to having an emotionally unavailable father. And so all of those things just ended in the perfect storm. And I ended up marrying somebody that was much like my dad. And didn't really think anything of the drinking or anything like that, because that's just something that's common. Saskatchewan has a drinking culture, absolutely has a drinking culture. And I don't know if it's because it's so fucking cold and there's nothing else to do, but people drink a lot here. And I think we had been maybe married for about 6 months when some things had already happened. Like, he would disappear for days at a time, week at a time. He was dealing drugs a little bit before we got married, but said that he wasn't going to do it anymore. And, I'm trying to go to law school. And it was about 6 months in where I noticed that he didn't drink like I drank. He would black out. And like I said, he would disappear. He would spend all our money. He couldn't keep a job, all of the things. But I'm from a family where you're married. You're married for 50 years. You're married for 70 years. You're in for the long haul. That's what you do. And second year loss. Yeah, exactly. Right. You just don't really do that. And second year law school, I had a baby with him. And then I decided that I wanted to practice law in Vancouver. So we went out to the coast, and during that time period, lots of really not great things were happening between me and him. But, I was just trying to cope. And I feel like the longer we were married, the more the drinking escalated. By the third year of law school, I had started using hard drugs as well. To cope, because I recognized that if we were using a particular substance, he wouldn't black out, and then he would be more fun to hang out with. And so we moved to BC. I moved to Vancouver, and I got a job articling out there, and then ended up pregnant again.
In which direction is Vancouver from your position now?
It's west. Vancouver's like, I'm smack in the middle of the country right now, and Vancouver is right on the west coast, like pretty much right above LA. Just go straight up the coast,
right
and that's right? Vancouver. Yeah, right.
Right above Seattle, right?
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Exactly. Vancouver's a beautiful city. It's a beautiful city, but there's a lot of drugs there, right? And the legal profession, although I don't think it's talked about a lot, again, high pressure, lots of drinking, using cocaine is pretty normal. It's not any sort of shock. But he before we moved to Vancouver, he had done some things in respect to dealing drugs, and where it was involved with some crazy people, and got my cousin dragged into it. And my family were already kind of not happy about the way my life was going in respect to him. They didn't like him. They didn't like some of the things they were hearing about him. They didn't like that he got my little cousin involved in a grow rip against my advice. And when we went to BC, things started getting worse between he and I. And I think that it was because, I was farther away from my family. And it was, I think, the first month we were there, and he got into a car accident and really screwed up his back. And he was prescribed OxyContin. So, down in the US, I think everybody knows what happens when you're prescribed OxyContin. And since our marriage was going sideways so terribly, and the abuse was going from like emotional and mental abuse to physical abuse, and he became addicted to oxys, and I was trying to be a lawyer, and I was trying to support, at this point I had another baby, so I was trying to support a family of 5. He's not working. All he's doing is drinking and using. And I just sort of started joining in. And so, weekends, it was just weekends. And then it started being like Thursday to Sunday. And then it started being like Thursday to Monday. And then it was all of a sudden every frickin' day, every day. And at first it was booze and coke, and then it was booze and crack, and then it was OxyContin, and then it was heroin, and then everything just went. So basically, since he wasn't working, I was engaging in some shady building practices for the firm that I was working for, because I was in a fee splitting agreement. And the only money that I made was when I brought clients in, I would split whatever I made with the firm. Okay. Since I wasn't at work very much, I wasn't making very much money. And so I started doing things under the table. And as a lawyer, you can't do that because all of your money has to go through a trust account. And then when you bill, you have to, transfer it to your general account and you get paid. Well, when you're trying to buy drugs, who wants to do all that? So, start engaging in some shady billing practices. Like I said, the abuse was getting worse. I was going into work less. They weren't really understanding what was going on. Like, I didn't come in with a black eye, and they, like, nobody was saying anything. And I was like, well, I think I need a job where I'm making salary. If I make salary, then I'll be able to pay my bills and I'll be able to keep my shit together and everything will be better. And so I started applying for jobs and I ended up getting a job as a prosecutor. Wow. So, when we're talking about hiding in plain sight and being able to keep your shit together, like I was going to court, blasted. And, doing lines in the bathroom, I'd be coming into work like, on zero sleep. I have published decisions, and I don't really know how I was holding my shit together to the extent I was, but in the background, I really wasn't, I was so miserable. And like, I phoned my cousin in Calgary who has so graciously forgiven and supported me all through everything. And she did have to take a step back for a while, but I would phone her and like be crying on the phone, and things were just bad. And my family sort of slowly started backing away because we all know when somebody's in active addiction, there's no boundaries, and people are kind of hateful and miserable and mean, and I would say horrible things to my family. And I think that and another thing you do is you play the victim, right? Nothing's your fault. It's everybody else's fault. And right, and that too, manipulating for money and that sort of thing. And we would use the kids, and his parents, like, they funded our drug and alcohol addiction for a really long time. And so anyways, basically what happened was when I went to be a prosecutor, some of those billing practices came to light. And they reported it to the Law Society, and I got sanctioned, and I had to resign as a prosecutor. And I was devastated, right?
Devastating, right?
Yeah, I was devastated because I love being a lawyer, and I think that I was really good at my job. And if all of those other things weren't going on at the same time, I don't think that I would have ever stopped being a lawyer. And so I had these sanctions with the Law Society, but I just kept using. And at that point, when I didn't have a job, it was every day, all day, right? And
what did it look like? What were you abusing at that time?
Oh my goodness. So it kind of went back and forth, right? Because he had this huge oxy prescription, and we, for a long time, like, drinking every day, but also we were trading OxyContin for Coke. And so it was that at that point. And I didn't really jump into the oxys until after. So after I got sanctioned by the Law Society, I went to the first part of my hearing and I admitted everything that I did. And right after that, my great grandpa, who I was extremely close with, passed away. And so it was just like another added level to what was going on for me. And none of our bills were getting paid. Like, we owed rent money and we were on the verge of being evicted, and my kids were barely going to school, and we had to go back to Saskatchewan for this funeral. And like my family were like, oh, they knew what a mess it was. And I was so devastated. And when I was here, my husband got thrown in jail, and I had to go back to BC by myself and try to work another job. And I got fired from that job. And then the sentencing part of my Law Society thing came up, and I convinced myself that I didn't care, that I didn't want to be a lawyer anymore anyways, and that I didn't want to be under the scrutiny that I would be under if they did allow me to continue to practice. And I didn't go. And I just didn't open mail from the Law Society. I didn't answer calls from my lawyer. Yeah. And so continued on with the bullshit for a few months. And then I finally got the letter from the Law Society, and I opened it, and it had the decision, and I jumped right to the end part that said basically that if I had shown up and told them what was going on for me, that I would have only been suspended for 6 weeks. But since I didn't show up, I was disbarred.
Wow.
So I shortly after that attempted suicide.
Sounds like, I was going to say, it sounds like a jumping off point to go full bore into your addiction.
Yeah, it was. And especially because then my in-laws came in and took my kids. And so, you know, I have no career. I have no kids. I'm in an abusive marriage. And I'm so out of it that I can't even plan for myself. And involvement with social services, and like I was trying, you know, I wanted to get my kids back, and I went to detox, and then I was supposed to go to treatment after, but then there was no treatment beds for basically 6 months. And so in that meantime, you know, I'm back in it, right? And at that point, I had gone from using cocaine to OxyContin. And he got cut off of his OxyContin prescription, and then I switched to heroin. And you know, I'm not getting my kids back. You know, it's not happening. And this is when things started to get real dark, because we're talking like Home Depot scams. We're talking about stealing catalytic converters. We're talking about all the shit. You know, all the things that really low bottom addicts end up doing, ways and means to get drugs. And things were not good with he and I. And, you know, we had been together for like, I think at that point, almost like 10 years, and trying to kind of stay together because, you know, I really loved him. And I can admit that now, like I was really in love with him. And I planned on staying married to him until I died. I really did. And, you know, that marriage and that relationship and how sideways it went, I think that, you know, I was grieving that in a lot of ways too. And so things started getting really bad, and we had nowhere to live. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to go back to Saskatchewan. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go back to Saskatchewan. There's no heroin in Saskatchewan. I can clean up in Saskatchewan. And he's like, well, I'm coming too. And so we like packed up the U-Haul and came back to Saskatchewan, and we shook it hard for about 6 weeks, and like dying for 6 weeks, and moved into a place. And my oldest kid at that point was like 18, and she helped with the rent. Like she paid the rent. I feel bad for her, and I'm so lucky that she's forgiven me as well, because that kid's seen some crazy stuff. Because my two younger kids, although they went to my in-laws, she was there for all of it. And so came back to Saskatchewan, and I think we were clean for maybe 2 months, and then we met people, you know, and started using opiates again. And he knew people in Saskatchewan from when he was dealing drugs here, and he knew people in Vancouver from when he was dealing drugs there. And someone in Saskatoon said to him, hey, can you get meth? Can you bring meth in? And at that point, meth wasn't a really huge deal yet in Saskatchewan. And we basically started bringing in like large amounts from Vancouver. And so my opiate addiction went from just opiates to opiates and meth. And we're dealing in town here, and it was really terrible. And we ended up getting evicted out of the place we were living. He ended up owing the guy like $30,000, and the abuse was worse, like way worse.
And this is a relatively small community too, right?
There's about 250,000 people, something like that. And yeah, like everybody knows what's going on, right? And so we get evicted, and at this point I'm done. Like I'm done, and he and I break up. And being the kind of person that I am, you know, I need to find ways and means. I need to be able to get drugs. And so I start dealing. And it turns out I was kind of good at it. So I took his connection. I also started bringing quantity in. When that went sideways because of a misunderstanding, and he tried to have me murdered.
Okay, I want to throw this picture up, and I want to give a disclaimer. This is graphic.
Yeah, trigger alert.
Yeah, trigger alert. So if you have any trauma issues, please look away. I think this is pertinent to her story.
So
crazy looking.
Yeah, basically because he owed this guy a lot of money. The guy, when I started copying from him, he wanted cash up front. So I brought somebody in with me, and that person ended up wanting to push me out, and they owed me money. And they went to him and said that I was going to talk to the police, and they decided together that they were going to have me killed. Wow. And that clearly did not work out for them, because here I still am. And I knew who tried to have me killed, and I was not talking to the cops. And I was in the hospital for 30 days. I had 33 staples in my head. Like the doctor said, "You are so lucky to be alive." And he hit me with a golf club. Like they hired two guys to kill me, and they kicked my hotel door in and tried to murder me. And hit me with a golf club, like a putter, and hit me on the side of the head. And it kind of just like knocked a big chunk out. And if it would have shattered, I'd be dead. And it was fucked up, because I had such a death wish at that point. Like I hated myself and hated my life so much that I didn't care if I died. And I was in the hospital, and I was using the hospital. They put me in a private room with a guard on me. And my ex was bringing me drugs, and I was high every day in the hospital. I was smoking dope in there. I was smoking cigarettes. They wouldn't let me leave my room. I was in there for a whole month. And then when I got released, I was homeless. Wow. And then I just did what I know how to do. And I ended up, nickel and diming it for a little while, like breaking up grams just so that I could get high. And then within a rather short period of time, again, I'm up, and large amounts. And I met somebody that was providing large amounts to me, and little did I know that he was a police informant.
Wow.
And I ended up getting busted with.
So I want to throw this picture up, and just to show contrast for everyone. This picture,
and that's actually. Yeah, that's actually after I got released from jail at one point. So I'm a little bit heavier than I was normally when I was like right in it. And
this such a contrast.
Yeah, look at that. Yeah, that's such a bad picture. That picture with the hat on is right after I got released from the hospital.
Wow.
So like I was sick. Like I was really sick. And like I was dying, and I didn't care. I cared enough to get drugs, right?
Sure.
And I was smart enough that I knew who to align myself with. and get large amounts. And so eventually, yeah, I got busted. I was in and out of the provincial institution for a while, and I ended up getting busted with quantity and a bunch of money. And I went in, and because and I love this, at 46 years old, I had no criminal record. And so they let me out on bail. And provincially, if they let you out on bail, or even if you finish your sentence, there's no supports. They just like release you to the street release. So the first thing you're going to do is go back to what you know. Like, I need drugs and I need money. So what am I going to do?
We know how to do that, right?
Yeah. And like, there wasn't a lot of supports, right? And so got released on bail, and I was kind of dating somebody then, and ended up pregnant, and didn't even know I was pregnant till I was almost seven months pregnant. And I got picked up again on a breach. And while I was in the provincial institution, I ended up losing that baby at 8.5 months. And, you know, that's not surprising. And, you know, it was really traumatizing, but I mean, it happened for a reason. I was using, like, I didn't even know I was pregnant. And they let me out again, and with the condition that I go to treatment. But I didn't have any health care. I didn't have any like insurance or coverage because I had been living off the grid for so long in active use. Like, we're talking at this point, I had been in raging active use for almost 8 years at that point, and so off the grid. And so I then got arrested again, and this time was different for me because I was just so tired of running, and I was so tired of not talking to my children for literally 3 years, and not talking to my family, and I wasn't dying. Nobody was killing me. And, you know, that's what I wanted. I had a death wish, but I was just so tired, and I was so tired of looking over my shoulder, and I was just so tired of waiting for my boyfriend to rip me off, or, you know, whatever messed up shit that was going on, because there was a lot of messed up stuff. And, you know, at that point in Saskatoon, there were a few girls that hustled, a few women that hustled, but most of the men, or most of the drug dealers in town, were men. And it was a hard life. Like, you know, I had to work twice as hard as everybody else. I always had shit happening. Like, I got sexually assaulted a couple times. I got robbed quite a bit. You know, I'm 5'1", and at that point I weighed 100 pounds. And you know, people weren't real scared of me until I started working for some people with clout. But even then, you know, it's all about the money. And so when the cops showed up that day to do a condition check, I was like, let's fucking go. Let's go. I'm so done. I can't live like this anymore. And so I went in and I pled guilty, and there was nobody in that courtroom the day that I was being sentenced. Just the prosecutor and my legal aid lawyer and the judge. And there was no evidence of who I was before all of this happened. There was no mention of the fact that I used to be a lawyer and a mom, and that, you know, I had a life before all of this. It was just that. And I got 3.5 years, and I ended up
federal time.
Yeah, but this was a blessing from Creator, because I thought I was going to Edmonton Max, and I ended up going to Okemau Ochi Healing Lodge, which is a healing lodge for women, primarily Indigenous women. But thank Creator, I was picked to go there. I think probably because, you know, a couple different reasons. Because I wasn't straight, right? And I think that I probably would have got eaten alive in Edmonton Max. Like, you can act hard all you want, but it's a different thing when you're in an institution, right? Absolutely. And so I got to go to the Healing Lodge, and it was weird because I got released. Well, not released. I walked out of the vehicle when we got there, and there's all these birch trees and there's no fences and it's out in the open. I call it club fed kind of. There's horses. There's cultural teachings and ceremony and elders, and the accountability is different because there's cultural programming. And I was like, this is my opportunity to turn my life around. And this is an opportunity to treat this like treatment and do absolutely everything that I can to change my life, because you are so lucky to be alive. And, you know, your kids deserve something better, you know?
And you were given that opportunity to realize that, you know, and come back to your senses.
That's right. That's right. And, you know, I would end up in the gym on the treadmill crying to myself. You know, someone would come in the gym and I'd act hard again. But like, I was like, what the fuck? You know, what did you do? You had everything. You know, you were a lawyer and you have this family that supports and loves you. And, you have all these really great people in your life, and your children, you know, they deserve so much better than what you gave them. And, you know, I did a lot of soul searching, and I was introduced to Narcotics Anonymous when I was institutionalized. And I know it's a little bit cliche or whatever, but I found my creator, and their creator is my higher power. I'm not necessarily religious. I definitely am spiritual, and I don't believe in institutionalized religion, but I do believe that there's something greater than us. And I found that there, and that spiritual vacuum that I've been carrying for so long just disappeared, and it's remained for me. And I started kind of going to meetings in community a little bit as well, and doing the readings. And because I didn't have a sponsor, I did things all kind of backwards, and started with a step 8 and step 9, and started writing a lot of letters. I wrote a lot of letters telling people how horrible I was, and trying to make amends. And some of that work
for us, right? Jump into the amends without starting and doing the internal work, because we want that feeling of forgiveness, right? We want to be able to explain ourselves.
You know, and it's sort of weird because I wasn't even really expecting that. I had so much shame that I was expecting I wouldn't get any of that. But I felt like, especially people in my family that had, you know, tried so hard to support me through all of this, and my children, I felt that they needed to be validated. Like, I did understand that. And, it wasn't that I expected the forgiveness. It was that I wanted them to know that I had hurt them. And I started writing letters to my children every week. And it took, I think, about 3 months before I finally got a letter from my in-laws. And I had asked if I could call. And they said, you can call, but I don't know if they'll talk to you. And I had no money. Like, I didn't have a pen pack. I didn't have any money on my books, you know, because I wasn't talking to anybody. And I reached out to my mom, and my mom came around pretty quick. And I reached out to a bunch of my cousins that, you know, I had harmed. And I reached out to an aunt that I was really close to, and reached out to my oldest daughter. And I didn't hear shit from her. And I didn't blame her. I didn't blame her at all. And my brother, I didn't blame him either. And my in-laws, they started taking collect calls from me. And first couple of weeks, neither of my kids would talk to me. I think it was about the third week my son got on the phone, but he was in tears. He was crying. He hadn't talked to me for almost 4 years. And it took, I think, another 2 months before my daughter would talk to me. And she was angry. She was really angry. And I just kept calling every Sunday. Every Sunday I would call, and every Sunday the calls would get a little longer. And then I chose to be released to a community that was really close to where they were living. And I got out on parole there and started rebuilding that relationship and rebuilding other relationships. And I got into the program right away and started going to NA meetings and got myself a sponsor. And we kind of talked about this before we went on, but I still wasn't ready to be transparent about, my history. I was still carrying so much shame. And although I was going to meetings, I wasn't doing step work. My sponsor, I wasn't listening to her. I ended up in a relationship, basically the same person in a different body than my ex-boyfriend and my husband, like the same thing. And
cycle continued.
Yeah. And it was a reflection of how I felt about myself, right? I didn't know who I was when I got released. I didn't know what that was going to look like. I knew that I very probably wasn't going to be a lawyer again. And who the fuck would want to hire me? Because I have a criminal record and I was a drug dealer and I was a drug trafficker and my kids were taken away and I'm still a piece of shit. And because I wasn't doing the work, that wasn't changing, you know? And so, I slowly stopped going to meetings and engaging in toxic behaviors still. And this guy that I'm in a relationship with, he's down in the States and I'm up here and, kind of figured he was used in Kansas. We're still really good friends. But I finished parole. I was on parole for 21 months. I did really well, but listen, I'm on parole and I'm piss testing. And I did get a job in a clothing store, but I'm still not admitting I got a criminal record. And I would tell people I was in recovery, but not really everybody. And I sure the hell wasn't admitting most of the stuff that went on and, wasn't owning my part in a lot of it still. And although I was given grace by the very closest people to me, like my cousin and my best friends, that live in Vancouver, friends that I've had since I was a teenager, it was still kind of off. And so as soon as I got a parole, I promptly went down to the States where it was illegal for me to be. And I think I relapsed within 3 weeks. And it was a bad run. It's a progressive illness. And it went from bad to worse. And like the picture with me with my chest bone showing, I went from weighing about 155 pounds to back down to 110 within 2 weeks. And like in psychosis and like skin all picked up, like just a mess. And that poor guy, I think he thought it would be fun to do drugs and hang out, but boy, did he get a rude awakening. because I'm not fun when I'm using. I'm a fucking maniac. And I'm violent and I'm mean and all of the bad things. And
that's such a polar opposite to who you are today.
Well, and it is. And I always say to people, hurt people hurt people. And that's exactly what's going on for me during those periods of when I was using. Like I was a terrible, terrible person. And because I didn't, love myself and I didn't give a fuck about life, I sure the fuck didn't give a fuck about you either.
So what was the turning point for you?
So I just woke up one day and I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like I had 33 months clean and I had learned enough to love my life and I had gotten enough of the program that I knew that I wanted to be clean. I knew that I wanted recovery. I knew that I wanted those relationships that I had rebuilt with my kids and my family. And I didn't want to let anybody down. And the whole time I was down there, I was like, I quit posting on Facebook and everybody knew what happened. And I had to come back with my tail between my legs. And I came back to Kamloops where I had been released from prison, where I didn't know anybody, but I did have a recovery community. And the sponsor that I have now and that I've had for the past 64 months, I talked to her and I was like, will you sponsor me? And she's like, you come back to Kamloops and I will sponsor you. And it was different this time. Like I wanted to be there. Like I wanted to be in the meetings. And, you know, that first meeting where I had to say I was coming back, that was really rough. Right. And, but things happen for a reason. And, like the program started to work for me. And I think the first time I didn't understand the concept of surrender, like I didn't understand what that meant because I wasn't doing the readings and I wasn't doing my step work. And when I finally figured out what it meant to surrender, things changed for
us
me.
felons have surrender has a negative connotation to it, right? Like it means you're weak, right? You can't cut it. You're just gonna, and that's not what it means spiritually.
No, it does not. And so I started doing some step work, and I am going to say this because I think it's important to say this. It took me almost 4 years to do a set of steps, but it worked for me. It worked for me because I was thorough as fuck. Like I wrote so much, and I was really honest, and I turned every stone over, and I felt like for me that I was getting the lessons as I was doing my step work. And there were times where I would be just outside and I'd be looking around at nature and I would get goosebumps all over my body. Like I just knew that I was on the right track. And it was easier and easier every day for me to wake up and just have faith that things were going to be turn out the way that they were supposed to turn out, and that they were going to turn out the way that I kind of wanted them to. You know, maybe not exactly like I wanted them to, but in a way that was in alignment with what Creator wanted for me.
Sure.
And the gifts started coming. And the promises started coming. And I was really fortunate to have the sponsor that I had. And we kind of talked about this a little bit too, because she wasn't really hard on me, right? I was still kind of in the muck with that relationship down in Kansas. And, you know, she was like, you know, don't just break up with him. Just let this naturally occur the way it's supposed to. And my whole life started kind of going that way. Like things started happening when they were supposed to. And I started being able just to, you know, trust that things would happen in the order that they were supposed to. And I've never been that person in my life. I've always had control issues,
manipulating outcomes, all of that.
Oh, fucking self-will. I should have that like tattooed on my forehead. And until I really knew what that meant. And that took a while, right? Until I finally figured out what that meant, and that self-will, and how I was sabotaging myself by pushing in that way. You know, things didn't change until I figured that piece out. And so I'm going to meetings, and probably not as many as I should be, but I'm doing my step work, and I am purpose-driven. Was given all these really amazing opportunities in Kamloops, where I started working for an organization that supported people that have mental health and addiction issues. And I was working in a wet building, and my sponsor was like, are you sure? Like, you're only 6 months clean. Are you sure that this is good for you? And it absolutely was good for me, because it gave me an opportunity. And I think that carrying the message looks different, and service looks different for different people.
Sure.
And I just sort of immersed myself in this idea that I should be this beacon talking about recovery all the time. And, you know, I'm not pushing it on other people, because you're not ever going to come into recovery until you're ready.
So this is where you started your advocacy, right?
Yeah, because
which is totally opposite from the person you were before, wanting to hide everything.
Yeah. And this was the thing, though, when I came back to Kamloops, and that's the agreement that I had with myself. No more hiding. So the first job interview for that organization that I went into, it was really funny, because one of my interviewers had actually worked for an organization that I was on parole with. And so she knew. And although I wasn't trying to take my lived experience into job interviews and kind of take over with that. That's all we talked about for the whole 45 minutes that I was there. We talked about my time in prison. We talked about me being in recovery. We talked about lived experience and the fact that I now had this amazingly, relevant lived experience. And I also had 2 degrees, sociology and Indigenous studies and a law degree. And why not make those things work together for me and for community? And the amount of respect that I was given in that interview was great. And I got that job. And very soon after, Kamloops Fry came to me and they were like, why don't you come work for us now? And they had already turned me down for a job. And so, I was kind of vindicated. And I went in and I started working for them. And I went from doing fundraising for them to running a supportive housing program for women that were in active addiction, trying to get their kids back, also, mental health, whatever. And then I ended up managing 110 unit affordable housing portfolio for the organization. And, just like I said, and I bought a house and I ended up with my mom living with me and my daughter was living with me. And then my son ended up living with me.
Talk about the promises coming true.
All of them. But then I was in a community where I had never used in and I didn't do any dirt in. And the people in the rooms were people that had only seen me when I was in recovery. And there were still amends to make, but not in Kamloops. And that's when Chantel had reached out to me with this job in Saskatoon. And I literally had said, and I had said it to everybody, I'm never going back there. And even my oldest daughter lived here at the time. And I told her that I was never coming back here. And I think that there were people that were scared for me when I ended up getting this job in Saskatoon. But I knew on sort of like a deeper level that coming back here would give me an opportunity to make amends to community. Because when I got released on parole, that's one of the things I said, I want to volunteer and I want to work in community organizations because I want to be able to give back for all the damage that it caused dealing drugs, because it's not a victimless crime. Like you cause a lot of shit. You break up families.
Yes.
You cause havoc, for police. You cause havoc for landowners. You cause havoc for landlords. You do terrible things when you're a drug dealer, right?
Absolutely.
And you don't care. And so I was like, this gives me an opportunity to go back to Saskatoon and make amends to community and continue the work that I'm doing. But there were also people in my family that didn't forgive me when I wrote those letters. And I knew that from doing my step 8 and step 9, that you're not always supposed to push your amends on people. And sometimes you have to let Creator roll those amends out when they're supposed to happen. And I came back and I ended up living across the street from my brother, who I had a very tenuous relationship with. That is not that way anymore. My brother and I are, again, fairly close. And I think that gets better every day. We've discovered, that all the things that we really liked about each other when we were younger are still there. And that's great. My relationship with my oldest daughter is it's pretty much exactly where it was before all of the really bad stuff happened. My aunt and her family, her 2 kids, super close with them before all of this happened. And I was invited to 3 different events out in the town I grew up in, and I was invited to Christmas out there. And so those relationships.
This is an amazing story.
And one of my best friends from law school that had to watch me slowly slip away and screw up my whole legal career, and also push some pretty horrible boundaries with her as well, because she was a federal prosecutor and was trying to do her job when all this was going on, and I was her friend.
Wow.
And her and I have seen each other several times now, and that's good too. And it's been weird because the lawyer that works for our organization that does a lot of our she does pro bono stuff for us, but she's also on retainer. She saw me in the women's correctional, and she saw me right after I lost that baby in the correctional, and she saw me at my absolute worst. And about 2 months ago, she suggested that to the Canadian Bar Association that they have me come and speak at their midwinter meeting.
Yeah.
And a couple days ago, I spoke in front of 200 lawyers, and she was there. And you know, things like that are coming up. And last May, I spoke in front of 160 provincial judges. And I speak at the law school, and I have a rule: I speak when I'm asked, because I think it's important that people know that you can come back from addiction, and that people know that it can happen to anybody, and people know that they need to be kinder and gentler and more understanding. And people also need to know that we are only as good as the options that we're given.
Absolutely.
And I always say this, and I'm going to say this right now. I'm coming from a place of privilege. I grew up with a family that loved me, and I grew up with a family that supported me. And I have 2 university degrees, and I ended up like in a place that you would have never imagined, with people that had it way worse than I had it. And the women that I was incarcerated with, they have an amazing amount of resilience and strength, because they've been through some crazy shit. Like when you talk about intergenerational trauma, and you talk about, you know, being exploited and coming out of foster care and not having education and not having families that support you, and then having that stigma in society on top of that. And so when I'm invited to speak to lawyers, or I'm invited to speak to judges, like I am trying to get them to think about, you know, people that are in front of them, or people that they're supposed to be supporting and serving, and trying to change those opinions so that we're better as a community, and that we stop perpetrating racism and stigma and all of those things that keep people in that shameful place so that they can't recover.
Wow. What an amazing story you have. So what does a social justice advocate do?
This is kind of my tag. So when I started my Instagram page, I was, like I said, I was just coming off that relapse, right? And like I said, before I went to law school, and while I was growing up, and you know, I started working for an outreach program when I was like, before I even went to university. And I've always been really very interested in equity and inclusion, and, you know, fairness in community, and making sure that people have the same sort of life chances and the same opportunities. And that's not how life is. But I'm going to be one of the first people that's squawking as loud as I possibly can when I see people are being treated in a particular way. And so when I'm talking about social activism, you know, before I became an executive director, and even before I became, you know, a housing manager or whatever for Elizabeth Fry in Kamloops, it's about calling things out. You know, it's about being in a room with people that are judging. It's about being in a room with people that are making those statements, or making things harder for people that already have it hard, and calling that shit out. Because there's so many of us, I think, in society that are complicit. And what I mean by that, you'll sit there and you listen to your friends talk shit and say horrible things about people that are in active addiction, or people that might be newcomers to Canada, or Indigenous in Canada, you know, on their own land, and saying terrible things, and allowing that to happen without calling it out. And I have never been one of those people, and nor will I ever be one of those people. And I think that when you are authentic, that it gives people space and the strength to also agree and also call that shit out.
And it also encourages them to use their voice as well. It's empowering.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, in respect to recovery, like I know that there are a lot of people that aren't able to be open, maybe because of their job, maybe because of their family, maybe because of their own shame, or maybe because of, you know, whatever is going on for them. And, you know, I think that for those of us that can talk about it, that we need to be as loud as we can, you know. And I don't ever judge people that are still hiding in plain sight, because I think that, you know, I was that person for so long that you know, it's important that the people that can do and say something about it are, so that we're providing opportunities for you know, society to start making changes in respect to their attitudes about things. I constantly am you know, I think at one point that I was kind of doing it for shock value. I get into meetings with government officials or people that are in management that you know, don't even think about sitting in a room and negotiating, giving people money that just got out of prison. But like, I'll straight tell them, like, I've been to prison. You know, I was a drug addict and I've been to prison. But this is why I'm good at my job. And this is why I know what works and what doesn't work. And I don't know it all. And like I said, again, I'm coming from a place of privilege. But when I don't know things, believe me when I tell you that I'm going to ask other people, and I have the humility to know when something isn't mine to carry, but I'll carry things forward for people when they trust me with that.
I'm typing in your Instagram tag. Let me know if I got it correctly. My friend Alexis Hoffman wanted to know where to follow you from. Follow you.
Yeah, I don't really people get, I think people get insulted because I don't really accept friend requests on Facebook too much, just because that's sort of like, that's where my kids are, my family, and I kind of keep that one a little bit tamer. You want to see clown shit, go on Instagram. I act up on there a little bit. Not too much.
You're real and honest, and what you say carries weight and value for sure. And you come from a place of lived experience, and the blessings in your life today are a result of the path that you've taken. You turned your pain into purpose. You found your voice. You found your calling and your purpose, and you're going to be employed again as a lawyer sometime in the future. I just feel it. How was it speaking at the conference in front of all those judges?
Well, the judges conference was last May, and listen, that was almost the worst experience I've ever had in my life. You think speaking, yeah, they can't make decisions without us. You're right. Like, you think standing in front of one judge is bad, and they're a hard crowd. They don't laugh or anything. And it was kind of interesting, though, for a couple of reasons.
A lot of them are addicted alcoholics, too.
Well, yeah. I had someone come up to me after I spoke, and I actually had like a couple people crying. And someone came up after I spoke, and she was like, "Do you remember me?" And I said, "No." And she said, "I had the office next to you when we were prosecutors." And she's a judge now. And she is like, "I'm so sorry that I didn't know what was happening." I said, "How would you know? Like, how would you know? You didn't know." And then I also had a couple judges come up and encourage me strongly to pursue being a lawyer again. And I do have an application in with the Law Society in British Columbia, and I'm just waiting for my health records because they want me to jump through hoops, right? They want copies of all my police reports.
You want it?
Yeah, well, some days I don't know, because the work that I'm doing right now is really important. I don't know if being a lawyer, you know, is it really that important? I'm not sure. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Yeah. Yeah. But I honestly love my job. Like, I love what I do.
It's pretty demanding.
I think that it's,
you have multiple duties. Hi, Bonnie.
I think that, and Chantel could have spoken to this a little bit, but I think that the timing for me coming back to Saskatchewan is really good as well, because Saskatchewan's about 20 years behind BC in respect to the provision of housing and services for people that might have, substance use issues or that are coming out of incarceration. And the housing crisis that we're experiencing in Saskatchewan right now is feeding the carceral system and basically feeding addiction as well, because,
Sure.
it's a lot easier to be homeless when you're high.
Absolutely.
And yeah. And so somebody needs to be making,
almost.
right? Somebody needs to be making noise, and I'm willing to do that.
Yeah, good for you. Thank you for jumping on here with me.
Yeah, no, thanks for asking me. I feel like it's been a long time coming. We've known each other for like more than 5 years, and it took this long.
Yeah. It's good.
Yeah.
It's good. It's good to get a visual on you. I love your accent, by the way. Chantel says I
What do you
love
mean?
making noise. I want to thank everybody in the comments. I didn't want to interrupt her while she was sharing. Throw her off. You know what I mean. I didn't want to interrupt. You did such a phenomenal job.
Sorry, once I get going, I can't really shut up.
That's fine. I'm grateful for that. Ashes to awesome. I see you, bro. You are loved for sure. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Kathy Holt, thank you for being here. I appreciate your support as well. Michael Ferrer, what's up, brother? My guy right there. Justin Greenlee, thank you. Thank you, bro. Thank you for being here.
But listen, you need Chantel on here.
Yeah,
she'll blow me out of the water.
She is coming. I talked to her on Facebook Messenger today, and we
perfect.
We connected. I want to do something special for you. Congratulations on 64 months of sobriety or clean time. Thank you. Whatever you want to call it.
It's interchangeable.
It's recovery, right?
It's recovery, right? Exactly.
Big Mike's in the house. David DeVita. Big Mike, Big Mike, I'm in the house. Sober Hope Hub. That's their platform.
We'd probably be able to see the messages better, but I don't have my glasses on and I'm
So I also wanted to throw up a couple more pictures. Such an amazing transformation. You're such a beautiful woman.
Aw.
Lightweight got a crush on you, honestly.
Who are you?
Don't be mean to me.
Oh, listen. I still have a lot of work to do. I discovered that the daily.
So
yeah.
Lifelong addiction I had, for sure.
Well, me too.
And all the consequences that come along with it, the homelessness, the felony convictions, multiple felony convictions, incarceration, that's hot. Detox, treatment, blah.
Yeah.
This side is so much easier, right?
It's way easier. Yeah. Yeah.
The hard part's getting clean. Kind of harder to stay that way, but hey, I'm coming up on almost 14 months now. I appreciate it. I know. Along the way. I appreciate
that's awesome.
Support. Yeah. Would you like to leave with a closing thought for anyone out there that's struggling or contemplating taking on this recovery journey?
People want to help, right? And you're not alone. And I think that's important. If you feel like you're alone, you need to reach out. And I know that this sounds so lame, but there are so many people on Instagram that have supported me in this last 5 years. Like, I've got a family on there that I talk to, like, all over the world. And I think that you need to know that there's people out there that you've never even met that will support you.
Absolutely.
Because it's nice over here, and we want you here. And so yeah, just make sure that you reach out. And I know that sounds so lame because it's such a lame saying, but I mean it. Yeah, just reach out.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for sharing your message, your story with us. I would love to have you and Chantel back on here together. We'll talk about the struggles of women in recovery, overcoming traumas, the addictive behaviors and so on and so forth. But I'm sure the interaction between you guys would be quite amazing and comical.
It's my goal in the next year to be working together. So we'll see what happens.
That's awesome. Well,
okay, thanks.
I want to come to Saskatoon sometime.
Come in the summer.
Come in the summer. Yeah. How cold is it there right now?
Actually, it's not bad today. It was like above freezing. So it's
okay. It's kind of, it's really gloomy here. Really gloomy. It's raining currently. I can hear it on the roof. But like last week, it was 0.
On the what? On the what?
On the roof. What do you call it?
You said it differently the first time.
What is that? The roof?
Roof. Okay, anyways.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'll quit making fun of you.
That's funny. Let me see. We got some more comments. Congratulations. Michael Ferrer says you're the best, Nicole.
Michael's the best too. Alicia.
A friend, Alicia.
She's my board chair actually,
awesome.
And she's known Chantel since like school.
It will get heated, but let's do this.
I know, but that's what I'm counting on.
I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for tuning in and the sharing. Thank you. I'm gonna end this right now. Thank you again, Nicole. You're beautiful.
Thank you.
I love you. Thank you for everything.
I love you too.
Everybody.
Okay.
Good night.
Okay.
I have 2 amazing guests coming up next week. I will make events for those. Just going to keep this going with Defying the Odds. Appreciate y'all. Peace.